And on the topic of WWE, Jim, did you see this past week? A lot of the listeners were sending it in like we wouldn't see it. Jesse Ventura at Raw backstage. Triple H greets him upon arrival. There's video of him with Punk. Punk did an interview where he said, Jesse said that, I think I knew if Punk went back, then it's safe for me to go back or something like that. What are your thoughts on Jesse Ventura being welcomed back into the fold of WWE? Being open to being welcomed back into the fold now that Vince isn't there. And again, Jesse Ventura back where, a lot of people first discovered him and fell in love with wrestling with him doing the color commentary in WWE.
Well, I mean, and he also said in these many words that Jesse did that he's back because Vince is gone. And now he felt like that it was, it was a new organization that he could speak to, apparently. And with Triple H, again, Jesse Ventura was dealing with Vince McMahon almost 15 years before Triple H met either one of them. So, he didn't have the heat with Triple H himself. It was head guy to head guy. And I think also with Punk, it's the same thing that he said. With Vince gone, it felt like a different place, different thing. And so I'm sure they had a interesting discussion about all the many reasons why that Vince was fucking poison to him. But Ventura makes a ton of sense because of he was the voice of that era, the last boom that they had before the Attitude Era, the 80s, and they could make a ton of money on merchandising and all the various things. And they were in St. Paul, so it didn't hurt. I think, Ventura lives in Mexico or somewhere now, doesn't he? Or has he moved back?
I believe he still lives in Mexico now, but I think he does plenty of things in the United States.
Well, but St. Paul, he was probably visiting the in-laws or some kind of shit. The old Minnesota gang.
I was just looking for the truth.
Yeah, it's out there somewhere. So I would think it's not like they flew him in. If they'd have flown him in to have a big official meeting, they probably would have brought him to Stamford and gone to the office. But if he came to the show there, where they could all sit down because he was in town, that makes sense. But anyway, yes, with the...
I want to talk about MI5's involvement in the disappearance of Moondog King.
Poor Sailor White gets none of the gratitude he deserves. But what I'm trying to say is, Jesse, yes, with the new organization, they're making billions upon billions of dollars. You know that they can do all kinds of shit with the retro figures and or the merchandising again. Wouldn't it be funny if they made a bunch of money for everybody, Ventura and the company and everything else, on some type of best of something of Jesse, when that was the bone of contention that first got sideways between he and Vince, was his royalties that he didn't get and had to sue for.
There's a whole bunch of Jesse Ventura action figures they could do that people like me would gobble up.
Well, and even if you don't want to eat them, if you just want to play with them.
In the purchasing sense.
In the purchasing sense.
That's right.
Gobble, gobble. Well, direct from Gobbler's Knob, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Jesse Ventura Show. But no, so that's good to see. Another prodigal son returns home to the WWF.
No heel commentator that I could think of off the top of my head since Jesse Ventura had the credibility of Jesse Ventura. Like, Bobby Heenan was different because Bobby Heenan was willing to be the fool. Like Jesse Ventura, there was never any of that. He would argue.
Yeah.
He would argue with Vince about, oh, you like your favorites. He would argue with him about that shit. Him and Monsoon is like the most underrated. I think fans of WWF at that time love it, but underrated teams because they didn't do that much together. But there was this weird respect. Like, they would joust with each other. Jesse Ventura would, ask Monsoon about wrestling Jim Landis or something. And Monsoon would have some snarky reply. And they were really fun together, but Ventura had credibility, and he even would say things about some of the wrestlers you would watch as a kid and it was obvious you couldn't deny their talent, even though they were a babyface, he wouldn't just bury them. He would say who had talent. He would point it out. I think he's still to this day the standard for a heel commentator.
Well, Jesse had several things because one, the voice was just tremendous, and the delivery.
That's right.
And
one, 2, and a 3.
He was another guy that early on was influenced by Billy Graham, but he had a completely different voice and cadence and style of delivery. It was with the muscles and the boas and the blonde hair and whatever that, Graham influenced him. But also, when Jesse started doing color, he pretty much knew that his wrestling career was over. So he was going to establish himself as a personality and as an announcer rather than not one of the announcer, but maybe, the color guy. But he was going to get his own personality over because the reason why he transitioned into announcing was he had blood clots. And when I saw, I've told you that story not long ago, when I saw him at the airport, when he had just done some of his first commentary, he said, I've been out for 6 months. I can't do the fucking voice, but I've had blood clots. So they blame Agent Orange in Vietnam. I don't know whether that was true or not. But if he couldn't wrestle anymore, he knew that he could get over that way, and he was going to be one of the bigger stars in the company, even if it was an announcer. And that's the first time that a real long-term announcer, even an ex-wrestler that's now an announcer, was still, fully capable of being one of the biggest stars in the company. Bruno was a legend, but not as an announcer. Ventura could transition right in with the outfits and the voice and the delivery and the vocabulary. It still worked.
See, that was one of the teams. It was McMahon, Ventura, and Bruno. And it would basically be Vince and Jesse calling the match, and then Bruno would do the replay, and then Jesse would make fun of Bruno. And Bruno would be such a baby face, he couldn't really fight back. Like, he wouldn't, hey, you're not nice. He wouldn't really say anything. But Ventura also an important role in terms of behind the scenes in wrestling for what he attempted, what didn't happen. And, he tried to unionize before WrestleMania 2. Vince McMahon revealed under oath in a deposition, or during the lawsuit when Ventura sued for royalties, that Hulk Hogan was the person that turned in Ventura as wanting to start the union.
Dime dropper Hogan.
He was sent home. He ended up doing Predator, getting him into the Screen Actors Guild. Now he's got his union. And NBC, Dick Ebersol, they had a hit with Saturday Night's Main Event. This is really a period of time where SNL, it's at the end of the Ebersol years, about to have Lorne Michaels come back. Wrestling was doing better or as good as some of those SNLs when Lorne Michaels came back.
Yeah.
Ventura was a big star on that show, and he was a big reason for the success. Again, I always say about Excalibur, or Schiavone, or Michael Cole in the past, whoever, you need a strong commentating team. And if you have the right people, it works. And they demanded he came back. And Jesse ended up leaving when he got his own video game deal. And Vince tried to kill it, or wanted him to kill it, and he refused, and he was fired.
And probably the last time that they may have been able to do something to, I don't know, force a union, but at least force Vince to do something, was around about that era, because Jesse realized, what if everybody on the card right before WrestleMania said, nah, fuck it. We ain't going to be doing that unless you do this for us. And Hogan, to protect himself, the position that he had.
That's right.
Because he wasn't going to go anywhere, because he was making all the money, and he and Vince were bosom buddies, and he was the chosen one. He got wind of it and told Vince about it so Vince could shut it down before it came time to nut cutting time, as they used to say. And since then, it's almost impossible, because you'd never get back then. If you got 30 guys to go in on that, Vince would have been powerless. Today, you'd have to get 150 75 or how many they've got.
Even what Jesse opened up with his lawsuit win, royalties, those are pretty much gone now because of the changing formats.
Yeah. And that was the thing that Jesse also, and I can tell you this from personal experience, Jesse won the case that he should have been paid royalties on these VHS releases, which is what they were back then. But nobody really knew in the middle 80s. Still, the guys were on the road. I knew I was a fucking video freak, right? But nobody really knew what kind of market anything on VHS was going to be. They were making towns, whatever. It's only been a few years we got these things. But, Vince knew. And so he never put royalties in the contract. And then when Jesse went back and won this, point being, there was a clause at that point Vince couldn't withhold royalties from the talent, but there were clauses in contracts that depending on what kind of contract, an announcer contract or an employee contract or even a talent contract, you didn't get royalties if you did color commentary. And that was the Jesse Ventura clause. Because think about that. The announcers are on every fucking thing. So they would have literally got a royalty for every goddamn match that's ever fucking released, right? Or two of the announcers at least. So announcers didn't get royalties, only the wrestlers.
And then for years, they edited out Jesse's audio when they put stuff out so they wouldn't have to pay him.
Which was awkward at a lot of times.
Yeah, no one really wants to hear Gorilla Monsoon or Vince having a conversation with themselves. It's really weird, but Jesse Ventura back in the fold, and hopefully there'll be, again, he's an older guy. He's not really kept up with the product from what we've heard. So you can't really expect him to go out there and be Jesse Ventura of 35 years ago. But it's just good, I guess, to have him there for, like you said, appearances, merchandise.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how many. Actually, he may go to WrestleMania or do something at Access or, Hall of Fame ceremony or whatever, something like that. I don't think he's going to be just popping up on TV every so often, but I'm sure they can figure out a way to use his name, likeness, reputation, and the vast amounts of video they've got to make some kind of money out of it. Or a biography, Jesse Ventura.
Hey, you know what would be the ultimate way to move past Vince McMahon and show the world that you've done it? Bring Dr. D. David Schultz back into the fold. Apologize to him for killing his career. Let's see what that does. That'll be the ultimate sign that Vince has no involvement. When they were going to do that oral history of WWE a few years ago, I don't know what happened to that project. It was a major project. The first rule WWE gave for their participation was no David Schultz. He cannot be interviewed for this book. So let's get him back there, I think, next.
Yeah, well, and then they could do a 2-pack of the action figures, David Schultz and John Stossel. Complete with slapping action and ear bandage.
See, unless you want to pay Stossel, it kind of has to just be generic mustached announcer man, I think, to make it work.
Well, you pretty much just described John Stossel.
A deluxe edition with Fuji in the background and the Iron Sheik in the background watching. I gotta see this shit. Let me go to the hallway and see what's about to happen.
He's gonna talk to Schultz. Oh, God.
All right, well, that was the Jesse Ventura news. And Jim, you hear news in lots of different ways. Some people read it the old-fashioned way. Some people hear it. That, too, is an old-fashioned way, I guess. Some people watch it. But if you need to hear the news, or music, or podcasts, or anything else, we know someone who could deliver wonderful listening experiences to you through their earbuds.
Brian, it's funny you mentioned the Raycon everyday wireless earbuds. It wasn't really funny the way you did it, but it's funny you mentioned them because right now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's back to school time. You've heard about this, Brian. You got some kids. Do you put them in school or do they know everything already?
Well, they go to school and it's back to school time. We all sit down and watch Rodney Dangerfield's 1986 classic. 86, 87, 86?
It's your story. Tell it.
Yeah, hey.
Hey, I'll tell you.
And another thing, Vonnegut, fuck you.
Yeah, and besides, I told my son about the birds and the bees. He told me about my wife and the butcher. But the thing is, if your kids are going back to school, and boy, it's about time you got them out of the house, isn't it? Well, they're going to need brand new everyday wireless earbuds because the back to school shopping is not complete unless you get the absolute must have for the fall. The kids, they're going to want to, if your kids do not have everyday wireless earbuds from Raycon when they go back to school, they're going to have to listen to the teacher. They're going to have to listen to boring lectures and lessons. Nobody wants to hear that when they're in school. They want to hear rock and roll music the way God intended it.
First of all, I don't know if that's the way God intended it, for children to ignore their teachers by listening to rock and roll.
Yeah. What else do you do when you're in school? Haven't you ever heard of rock and roll high school? But let me tell you, folks, right now, it's not only for just getting through school without having to listen to the teachers. It's also, you know what? You can pair these things with your, what do they call them? The green teeth? Green teeth was the
Bluetooth.
The Bluetooth. You can pair it with the Bluetooth and all the other cell phones and things kids use these days. And if you've got the everyday wireless earbuds, well, then you can have a secret communicator with somebody in a closet with the book, and they're reading you the answers. So you can pass all your tests.
Let's focus on the adults in the audience and selling to the adults in the audience. And when I say the audience, the people listening, let's talk about the fine products of Raycon for the adult population.
Well, let's go ahead and sell to the adult population out there that are listening now that are going to be in school, because if you're an adult, you're still in school, that means you're stupid. So
hold on now. That's not true. That's not true. Some people go back to school. Some people continue with school.
Did Rodney.
Well, he was rich. He decided he wanted to be with his son at school. That's beautiful. He joined the diving team, did the triple Lindy.
I don't know now. Come on now. If a guy in his 50s, 60s just comes to school because he wants to be near his son, you think that's going to pass muster? Somebody's going to be investigating that.
For what?
That's why you need your everyday wireless earbuds to keep up with the news, so they can tell you if there are any suspicious people wandering around your school.
It's all on film. There's no questions.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, the Raycon everyday wireless earbuds also will play video inside your brain. So you can actually see the music as it's being created.
No. I don't even know where that came from. That's a first. No, it doesn't do that.
I thought because these are the new improved ones now.
It doesn't do that yet, but stay tuned.
Okay, that's still in development, folks.
Well, the future's a promising something.
A promising place. Well, they do have the quick charge function. Charge it for 10 minutes, you can get 90 minutes of battery. So you just, kids in their second, third grade, they're on their smoke break in between classes.
Again, honk. No, the kids have nothing to do with this. This is about the adults on their smoke break from their job, leaving their cubicle. Leaving the cubicle.
The kids are all right in the cubicle. Just leave them there. And also, it's got the ergonomic design to fit that wide range of ears, no matter how far apart they are. These things will go in. Multi-point connectivity.
Connectivity.
Yeah, that too.
You're making it sound like it comes from Connecticut.
Connectivity. Actually, it's from Con Edison.
Ah.
And it's the activity that they undergo there at Con Ed. Awareness mode, the active noise cancellation feature. You can you press that button, you can't hear it thunder. And as a matter of fact, if you don't press the button again, you'll be deaf permanently. It works that way. You got to press that button if you want to hear again. 3 customizable sound styles. It's weatherproof and or sweat resistant. I'd like to see somebody wear them out in the rainstorm that hit the castle yesterday. That would put that to the test. And the earbud tap functions that reduce discomfort. When you're feeling uncomfortable about something, you tap these things, instantly a feeling of well-being comes over you. No more discomfort. Well, that's worth the price of admission alone. And they've got a 30-day happiness guarantee. So how can you beat that? Every time you want to be happy for 30 days, you press a button on these things, and they'll sing you a little happy song. If it makes you happy. Something like that. Or maybe Happy by Keith Richards.
Go for
But
that
right
one. Go
now-
for that one. Stop with the Sheryl Crow. We've established that's not really your key.
It's not my key.
Why don't you go with Keith Richards, who could barely sing?
Might not even be my lock. But right now, if you go to buyraycon.com/JCE, listen to this now. This is a new deal here. And nothing that FDR had anything to do with. 20 to 40% off site-wide. Up to 40% off everything on the website, which of course is BUYRAYCON, buyraycon.com. If you use the promo code JCE, 20 to 40% off. So again, it's the best. If you do the math now, if you buy 3 things that are 40% off, that means you're going to get 120% off. That means they're going to send you these things and 20% of the purchase price back to you. It's amazing the way they do this and still stay a going concern. So, and if you buy 5 things, you'd get 200%, right? Well, that means that they would give you these things that you bought plus half your money back. Because 200% is twice what 100% is.
Hey, listen, why don't we stay away from doing math for everyone? Let everyone decide what they want to do. Let everyone add it up
it's
with their own
numbers.
State tax and everything else.
Yeah.
Let's stay out of it.
Simple numbers. You can do the math yourself, folks. 20 to 40% off site-wide. Everything at buyraycon.com/JCE. Get those kids fixed up for the back-to-school times. For heaven's sake. I mean, we all need to learn some things. They can learn lyrics to their favorite songs while they're in algebra class.
All right. The views of...
I never got that algebra. Algebra.
The what now?
The algebra.
You never got it?
Never. It never appealed to me.
Well, how far did you get with math in high school?
Well, I'll tell you what, 3rd grade math was the hardest 4 years of my life.
Okay. Did you get the calculus?
Yes, but thankfully the dentist got it all off.
All right. Buyraycon.com. One more time, Jim. What's that code?
Buyraycon.com/JCE. And I'll tell you what, when your kids graduate 6th grade, they will be so excited they can hardly shave without cutting themselves.
Once again, we're talking about the adults, and for the adult in you, because you are an adult, buyraycon.com/JCE.
The adult in you. Wasn't that Barbra Streisand, but it was written by Barry Gibb?
I'm not too familiar with that area of the Barbra Streisand catalog.
Yes.
I don't know. You have a lot of Barbra Streisand records?
Well, just only the classics.
Only the classics.
Just what sits on everyone's shelf.